Sara Gebremedhin, welcome, Vice President of JP Morgan Chase. And this is fantastic having you as part of the World Happiness Fest. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Louise. I'm really excited to be here.
So we are going to be talking about amazing and very important topics going on in corporate America today. We are going to be talking about well-being. We are going to be talking about happiness, about money. We're going to be talking about equity, diversity, inclusion. I mean, the whole spectrum of important topics that we are addressing these days in the United States. So welcome, and let's start with the question of combining well-being and money, the crossroads of well-being and money at the workplace. Why is this conversation important?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to just introduce myself really quickly to the audience. Hello, everyone. My name is Sara Gebremedhin. I'm a vice president at JP Morgan Chase, really focused on marketing strategy for our community and affordable home lending team. I've been at JP Morgan Chase for about 6 years, really recently coming from our Advancing Black Pathways team, where I focused on brand marketing, partnerships, and sponsorships, really focused on growing economic opportunity for Black Americans and business owners. I was born and currently work in Washington, D.C., and proud alum of Howard University, where I got my bachelor's in business administration. But no, thank you for your question. And when talking about workplace well-being, I understand it as the way employees' duties, expectations, stress levels, and really overall working environments affect their health and happiness, right? So the most important conversation, in my opinion, to have, with yourself at the crossroads of well-being in the workplace is to, one where you think through your personal and professional goals and align them to what health and happiness look like for you in very specific and tangible ways. And once you do that, you'll be able to see what steps to well-being really look like for yourself in the workplace. Now, as it comes to well-being in the workplace, I found that when I start a year off without setting those specific goals for myself, I start to pick up a lot of projects that may not really be in my immediate work scope or even in my personal growth plan. And at first, those projects seem small and harmless, but they really start to pile up, right? And you begin to feel super guilty for, not letting colleagues know early on in advance of the process that you're not going to be able to help. So sometimes it's easier to just start with where your goals are and then be realistic on how much time you actually had to dedicate to those goals. So I think that's most important in the workplace. And when you're looking at money, well-being and money specifically, I would say when I was younger, I used to think I was a really good saver, but studying business and really joining the financial industry opened my eyes on how important financial health is to your everyday life, right? So the most important conversation to have with money specifically, I think, is to save for milestones. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you save. And for me, that milestone really looked like owning a home. And in our communities, we haven't been afforded the opportunity to really own a home, and owning a home is that first step towards real economic wealth and financial stability for your family, right? So after having that conversation with myself, I was really, really blessed to start a savings plan, be dedicated. And at the end of last year, I was so blessed to really purchase my first home, granting me the ability to, build equity that I can use later on in life for myself or my family. So I really think those are the places to start within those two realms.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's many times we are very shy and we are not sure how to combine financial well-being with happiness, overall happiness. So we never know when enough is enough. What we know is that there is, and research shows that around $60,000 in America, where when you go above, the levels of happiness don't increase too much, but below 60K improves a lot as soon as you get to that point. So I think what you say about savings is very important, is very, very important. So you can create a secure base and to build on that. Has that been, because now you are combining uh, your your future and your present and your personal purpose with the purpose of your organization, and then we talk about well-being and finance. Is your purpose around that? Are you actually living your purpose when you work in your company? Can you advise how to do that?
No, that's a really good question, Luis. Thank you for that. I think really where you have to start is defining what meaning and purpose look like outside of work, completely agnostic of work. No matter how much you love what you do, or have passion towards it, once you begin to monetize on something like that, you know, whether it's your own company or, being an employee for someone else, it's hard, right? You can get unmotivated, you can get exhausted. There's going to be times where, because you're monetizing on it, it doesn't feel like your passion anymore. So in my personal belief, I think making your personal and professional goals, again, agnostic of work, really help you create that meaning and purpose in your life. And then that allows you to actually make clear objectives for the year that you can then start to really make those tangible goals against. So in my personal life, right, equity and inclusion have always played a significant role. However, it wasn't actually until a few years ago I understood the change a company could create by valuing equity and inclusion and being intentional with their business. So after seeing that, I was able to be more intentional with the roles that I was actually taking, ensuring that it aligned to what I found meaningful, right? So as a marketing strategist right now, I'm really fortunate to be able to help drive culturally relevant campaigns for Black and Latinx future homeowners. And, I was personally able to find purpose in my role by knowing that we're focused on a larger goal to break down barriers of systemic racism. And that gave me purpose, motivation to really kind of keep achieving, given the potential impact that we could make against our communities and to other corporations, seeing that there is equity in doing work like this. So once you have that real conversation with yourself, on what those personal and professional goals that we've been talking about look like and what that looks like to accomplish those, you'll see you have a bit of a layout on how you already see work fitting in. It may look like that 9 to 5 so you can fit in your family. It may look a little bit more flexible this year because you see yourself using this role to grow in title or in paycheck. Or it may be your year to work smarter and not harder so that you're becoming more efficient in what you do instead of adding more to your plate. So once you understand how to best kind of lay out that typical work week, you'll have that candid conversation with your manager to help them hold you accountable to the goals you told them you wanted. So
I love it. I really like the way you structure, and it's very clear.
it's
Uh, yeah, that's fantastic. So, uh, do you, in a normal day, do you think a lot about the meaning and purpose of your life, or not?
I wouldn't say day to day, but I do try on the weekends. I take Sundays to kind of take a step back, look at the week. Are these meetings, working for me? Are they, laddering up to what the goals for the week for the business look like too, so that I'm not, then at the end of the week trying to run after what those goals looked like. So I would say yes, they look weekly, but for everyone it's different. Some people like to journal at the end of their days, and that's their way of kind of reminiscing on what purpose and meaning look like and how to get closer to that for the next day. So each person is different, but I personally do it weekly.
So, just thinking a bit about what happened over the last 12 months worldwide, but especially in this case, in the United States, we've seen so many different factors combined, from social equity. You talk about systemic racism. We talk about pandemics. I mean, just the combination of those three has created a lot of suffering in so many places. Can you share a bit how you handle this so-called suffering or pain that all this is bringing to so many people. How what do you do? How did it affect you and your communities? Can we go deeper on that topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Suffering by definition, because again, I'm type A, I have to pull it back to definition. It's um, it's the state of undergoing distress or hardship, right? So when looking at what we're all dealing with on this planet right now, the pandemic has shifted literally everything that we've known, and things we're literally just finding out that are shifting. So it's a very unsettling time for sure. And suffering right now in the workplace looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. A lot of businesses right now, I think, are really trying to make those contingency plans for, when we go back to work, or, until we have a clearer view. And the reality is it's extremely hard as an employee to try to have to navigate, right? So the virtual landscape, in my opinion, I think it's here to stay. And that's a really hard pill to swallow because human interaction is needed. And the reality is we got a lot of that human interaction from work. So arguably our work lives have taken the biggest shift in this pandemic. I think if you're, currently not already flexible with your working style, I recommend you taking a step back and look at how you're managing your projects or your employees. Really relook at, what meetings or old processes used to look like and what needs to get cut out because it's just not the same state of the union anymore. And, what are laddering up again to those personal and professional goals. Um, I think we need to start meetings by sharing more personal news or even wins, really to help grow that camaraderie and connection with the group, and keep it authentic because a lot of people are starting for the first time in these new roles too, and it's all virtual. So we need to try to be as transparent as possible since it's hard. It's really hard to get that connection. Um, and honestly, we're not really sure what even the next few months look like, but coming together as a team and talking to each other on how we can really help draw those lines and boundaries at work to help yourself and your teammates not honestly suffer at work. From an emerging standpoint, though, there is an increased focus on work-life balance, just being at work at home. We have to now find the right balance. And I know the UK has had this in place for a very long time, but the EU Working Time Directive, that is
Mhm.
a right. They've always made sure that their citizens were healthy and safe at work, just by being able to ensure that employees had a 48-hour cap work week, and then they had these required rest periods. Now, that allows, they put those originally in place really because long hours are really unsafe for workers, and they contribute to things like stress or fewer opportunities to exercise or poor diets, which all start to snowball into much larger things, right? So it'll be interesting to see, as we go through this pandemic, how work-life balance shifts. But I think that's been the hardest thing for me, is to understand when can we really do a pencils down. People know you're at home and you're not doing anything, quote unquote. So it's harder to kind of draw those lines in the sand. But having those candid conversations with your coworkers, knowing that you go exercise at a certain time, will really help them to start helping you to draw those lines and stop suffering at work.
Thank you so much for sharing. Can we go a bit deeper into equity, the concept of equity, because this is now becoming a must. This is part of everyday conversations. How do you approach that concept, and can you give us some examples of actually what you can be doing at work around this?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. So equity by definition again, but in the workplace specifically, it really means everyone receiving fair treatment, right? The bare minimum of it. When equity exists, people, regardless of their background, have equal access to opportunities across the company. And having that will actually help with employee retention and attracting new talent and a myriad of things, right? So I recommend four main things when looking at your personal growth development from an equity standpoint at work. One is fight for your worth. Two is always assess your calendar. Three is stop engineering smallness at work. And four is celebrate your wins. Now let me explain, right?
Yes, please.
So fighting for your worth. If you know you're bringing a lot of value to your role, make sure your manager, your coworkers, your team members, and anyone else interested, quite frankly, are along for the journey with you so that they can champion you when you're not at those meetings, when you're not in those opportunities to help kind of move your career forward. If they're not along for the journey with you, they can't fight as intimately as you would, right? So bring them along for the journey. Two, assess your calendar, right? This is back to those goals. If they're not aligning, and I seriously do this on Sundays, like it's my day to like relook at everything. And I don't just look at my work calendar. I absolutely look at my personal calendar. Are they the right folks that I want to be, growing relationships with, or is it, am I, doing any of the personal growth activities, whether it's studying, reading, etc. Like, am I making time for these things in my life? So I think assessing your calendar weekly is very needed. And, doing this will actually help you become more efficient in what you currently are doing, thriving in your current role so you can get those opportunities that do come your way.
Mm-hmm.
Three, stop engineering smallness at work. Now, I was extremely shy at work. I started this role right after Howard University. I just came from school into work. And I think, it took me some time to try to grow out of my own imposter syndrome. And I think I'm still, fighting those battles. But as a first generation American Ethiopian woman, I was constantly spoken to about my realities or difficulties that I would probably come against at some point of time in corporate America, to the point where I think I started to hold myself back from even reaching the goals sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by engineering smallness, I mean not taking the big project just because you don't think you can, or not asking a question in a large meeting because you don't think you're smart enough to ask those questions, or discounting yourself or apologizing for what you're about to say before you even start speaking. The reality is people take their lead on how to treat you at work, on how you treat yourself at work. So if you are presenting yourself a little bit not sure or intimidated or things like that, people will take that immediately and run with it. And lastly, celebrate your wins, right? We go too long, and I specifically, again, focused on a work lens, you become very routine in especially a corporate role, or even a non-corporate role. You become very routine, and you forget to celebrate you for even. So take those moments, celebrate milestones. And this is another one where you bring your teammates along for the journey. Celebrate milestones in your personal life too. Tell them about it. It'll really grow that connection more with your teammates. But basically, equity in the workplace means equal access, right? Not necessarily equal outcomes. So once you've decided on your goals, you have to run towards them unapologetically, but always remember to enjoy the journey in the meantime.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It's been fantastic conversation. I mean, let me tell you that your company, JP Morgan Chase, is very lucky having you. I love the way you actually position the topics and the way you explain that from a really practical way. So thank you so much. This has been very helpful, and it's going to help many people to really go through and understand how we can build and engineer more happiness and well-being at work, and how we can really take equity very serious in the workplace. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Louise. I really, really appreciate the time here.
Thank you.
Scientific community is rising to the occasion. Vaccines are being created as we speak, delivered throughout the world, fighting the coronavirus. This is not the only vaccine that humanity needs. What we need more than ever is a psychological vaccine. Because going through hardships and difficulties, how do we emerge from these? And with a strong psychological vaccine, we can not only overcome these difficulties and hardships, we can grow stronger, happier. And this is where the science of happiness comes in. The tools that we learn through that science as part of this field, happiness studies, are the very tools, techniques, and interventions that we need to strengthen our psychological immune system. It is the psychological immune system, a strong immune system, that will get us through difficult times, that will help us grow stronger as a result.